Let's add real DB support to our dummy user API. We'll make some changes. Let's first change a name to DB manager from fake DB. We'll import a DB class. Let's just quickly change everywhere that we are calling here. Let's rename the file to DB manager as well. Let's install SQLAlchemy. We'll be integrating that support using SQLAlchemy. We'll use SQLite for now, so it's quick and easy. We don't have to start any new server. Obviously, SQLAlchemy allows you to use other DBs. Let's define the path for the DB file that we have. Instantiate the engine. We'll soon import all these. Let's connect dogs as well. Instantiate the DB session maker. Import session maker as well. We'll be doing explicit commit, so let's add that. Let's find the DB engine that we instantiated above. Let's import create engine session maker for now. As we use more of SQLAlchemy's, we'll import them as well. Let's have DB base, declarative base here as well, that we'll use to declare our table schemas. Let's first declare our users table schema. I import it from the model, but we'll make changes. Users for the table name. Let's update these fields to use SQLAlchemy types as well. For primary key true, we'll keep nullable false. Let's say we don't want the primary key to true for this, but we can give it a unique true if we still want it to exist for 1. This will be simple boolean. Let's get ahead with other things. Now let's import the column, boolean, string, integer types. Now we'll modify our fake DB class that we had. We'll first of all comment all these bits so we still remember the structure when we're implementing the DB calls in it. For now, let's place the metadata create or here. We'll pull it somewhere else later. This is responsible to create the tables within SQLite. Otherwise, it'll make the request, but there won't be any table to add it or query. For each call right now, we'll return none if there is an error. No special error returns. We're using the user schema here, passing it on the thing that we get from the model. And then we'll do a DB add. Let's assume that we are passing DB session to it from the request itself, where like every new session gets passed. I will refresh this user itself to get the user ID and then return the user ID for a new created user. Let's pull the same structure in get usernames. Clean this up. We'll need the DB session here as well. Here let's use the DB query. We'll tell it that it's for the user schema and then query all the rows that it has. Then simply do a for on it to get the usernames. Let's pull to get user by name as well. Let's provide the type for uname and add the DB session in its params as well. Let's use a statement for select where here. We'll import select from SQLAlchemy as well. So where name is equal to uname. Now we need to run this statement. We'll be using the db.scalars and then pull the first row from there. So scalar statement .1 should do that. So this will return the user record itself. We're keeping this separate so it looks a bit cleaner when adding more. Now we'll add a getDB function here, which will allow our calls to get a fresh session to be passed. For now we'll be keeping this create all here. When we evolve it further, we'll move it to some place where it'll be only called at the beginning of the app. It'll yield a DB call on each call, and whether it's able to do that or not, I'll try to close it. So since we'll be passing DB session from here itself, all our APIs will be depending on the DB session. So we'll be importing the session from SQLAlchemy ORM as well, and we'll specify here that there's a DB session that depends on getDB. And now we can simply pass this DB param to the get user by name and other functions that we have here. So what this will do is, for each call it'll pull out a session and then pass it over to the DB functions to be used. Let's update the return types as well so they have a better details. Now the getDB call is similar, so we can simply pull it the same way at other places as well. We'll add the none check at other places as well. This will be user.name. Let's pull this into get usernames as well and simply pass the DB. The check for none. The error message is specific to this, and passing the DB session. Now let's try this change that we made. We've started it. Let's open the doc. Refresh. We'll try it out. Change the username to Bob. Execute it. It has added it. The user ID is 0 as we provided in our body. Now for Eve it failed since we didn't change the user ID that we are passing as of now from our request itself. It's not auto increment mode. So let's change it, try it again. It worked good. Now let's check for usernames. We should get both Bob and Eve. They're there. Let's try out the username pair as well. Let's check for Bob first. We get the record correct. Check for Eve. We get the correct record. Let's check for a name that doesn't exist. Say Charles. We get a proper error that we configured. So that was it. Rest in the next video.